Welcome to the 19th week after Pentecost. It is Wednesday, October the 2nd, 2024. This is the Manna at the Tap podcast, where we as a community actively seek the spiritual nourishment our souls crave. The daily lectionary reading we explore together is the Manna, designed to nurture our spiritual growth and provide the sustenance our souls need. I'm Gloria, your fellow traveler on this spiritual journey, and together we offer and receive insights and interpretations from these readings, enriching our spiritual lives. The lectionary has skipped chapters 6 and 7 of the book of Esther, and we have landed on Esther chapter 8. So here's a summary of what those chapters contain. When we left in chapter 5, Haman and the king were invited back to Esther's home for another banquet. The king wanted her to state her request at the first banquet, even up to half his kingdom, but she asked for a threesome dinner party: the king, Haman, and her. During the night, though, the king experienced an attack of insomnia and called for the royal records to be read, hoping he would fall asleep while the servant was reading. He was wide awake when the servant read about the attempted assassination on his life by two of his attendants. They were executed for their act. The servant continued to read about how Mordecai saved the king's life. And the king wanted to know what honor or distinction had been bestowed on Mordecai. The servant bluntly replied, "Nothing has been done for him." As the king pondered his oversight of not rewarding Mordecai for saving his life, something caught his eye in the courtyard. It was Haman, who also seemed to be having a sleepless night. The king blurted out, "What shall we do for a man the king wishes to honor?" Haman, assuming he was the person, gave his suggestions. Haman, the king's highest ranking official, was assigned to escort Mordecai the Jew on the royal horse, wearing the royal robes around Susa. Haman went home to his fan club and his wife to relay all that had happened. But before he could finish talking, he was quickly escorted to the banquet Esther had prepared. As if on cue, the king asked Esther about her petition and requests. This time, Esther was ready to state her petition and to name her requests. "If I have won your favor, O king, and if it pleases the king, let my life be given me. That is my petition. And the lives of my people, that is my request." The king received more information from Esther, and when asked who had plotted this evil, she pointed directly at Haman. The king was enraged and he left, only to return, seeing Haman fallen on the couch where Esther was sitting, thinking that Haman was about to molest Queen Esther. One of the eunuchs told the king Haman had a gallows prepared for Mordecai, the person who saved his life. He ordered that Haman be impaled on his own gallows. Then the king's fury subsided. Today's lectionary reading is Esther chapter 8, verses 1 to 17, a chapter filled with reversals. On that same day, the king changed his mind. He gave Esther the wealth of Haman. Haman had wronged the queen on 2 points by plotting her death and assaulting her while she was on the couch. The king also gave Mordecai Haman's position in the palace, and Esther appointed him to run Haman's estate. But it was now up to Esther to make some decisions that would affect all the Jews in Susa and the rest of the kingdom. She fell at the king's feet, weeping and begging him to end Haman's evil plan. The laws of the Medes and Persians cannot be changed. So Esther proposed a new law be written, and this time the king took off his signet ring and gave it to Mordecai to seal the edict. Esther had, for the first time, identified with the Jews as her people and the fate that was awaiting them. And if the king cared about her, and it seemed like he did, then he had to do something about Haman's edict. Esther gave Mordecai the sole responsibility of writing the new law and sealing it with the king's signet ring. Here's something. Haman had little respect for the Jews. You see, copies of the first proclamation written by Haman had not been explicitly sent to the Jews, and they were left to hear about their fate indirectly from the people among whom they lived. Still, Mordecai took care that they should all be informed directly of their right of defense. The couriers used royal horses to carry out the king's command, granting the Jews in every city the right to assemble and defend themselves. There was still a element of fear looming large, but according to the new edict, the Jews were only to protect themselves if the Persians attacked them. Violence was not Esther or Mordecai's first choice. The second edict was a second choice and a very limited one. There was no small feat given from that previous vulnerability that they experienced in a hostile and unjust environment. As noted in the introduction to the book of Esther, God's name is not mentioned in the book, but over and over again, we can maybe call it coincidence, if you like, but God seems to be taking a very active, low-profile role throughout the book. Mordecai taught his adoptive daughter well, and yes, she did not remain silent. She brought relief and deliverance to the Jews, and it was her royal position that saved her people.